Welcome students, I am Srimanti Mukherjee. I teach Sociology in Rabindra Bharati University at the Department of Sociology. Today, our topic of discussion is Emile Durkheim, and we will give a brief introduction before I get into the details of the parts of it. Emile Durkheim, the pioneering French sociologist, is widely acknowledged for his groundbreaking establishment of a sociology department at the University of Bordeaux. His profound focus on social order and the beneficial roles of social institutions highlights their essential contributions to societal functioning. As a functionalist, Durkheim introduced the impactful concept of social facts, which provides a framework for understanding the dynamics of society. He asserted that social facts are external to the individuals and that they exert a compelling influence on the individuals from the outside, and they are coercive in nature. His seminal theories, notably those concerning religion, suicide, and the division of labor, demonstrate his belief that society significantly shapes individuals' behaviors, whether through the process of socialization or through the conditions of anomie where societal norms break down. Central to Durkheim's theories are the ideas of social solidarity and collective consciousness, illustrating how interconnectedness in society fosters a sense of belonging. While some critics have labeled him as extreme, arguing that he exaggerates the significance of the social whole, the enduring relevance of his work continues to inspire sociological inquiry and understanding of human behavior in a social context. Now, this was, in a nutshell, an introduction to what we are going to talk about today. He was born in 1858 and lived on till 1917. He was a French sociologist. His major works were on the division of labor, on the rules of sociological method, suicide, and the elementary forms of religious life. Besides, he also focused on different other topics, other areas of study, but these were his major works. He focused on the problem of order, how to bring back social order, as we all know that it was a time of turmoil with several revolutions happening around the world. Everyone was concerned to settle it, how to bring back social order. Thus arose the school of Functionalism. And Spencer Coate, along with Durkheim, these were all functionalists who focused on this problem of order, and they focused on the positive effects of social institutions. And what did they focus it through? They focused it through the functionally necessary contributions that these institutions do. Now, Durkheim was known as the father of sociology when he established a department of sociology, a separate department of the discipline at the University of Bordeaux. He argued that social phenomena and institutions, all of which he labeled as social facts, constituted an independent reality, independent force. He developed a methodology combining empirical research and sociological theory to look at what kind of background he came from. Durkheim was born into a Jewish family. He was an excellent student and he was a very strong candidate to enter the renowned and highly competitive École Normale Supérieure in Paris. He succeeded to do that. Durkheim looked to science and in particular to social science and to educational reform as the means to avoid anomie. What is anomie? Anomie is the state of normlessness. In 1887, he was appointed as a lecturer in the University of Bordeaux. Subsequently, Durkheim became a professor of social philosophy until 1902. He then moved to the University of Paris. He perceived around him the absence of social norms. As I said, there was anomie. He felt there was normlessness, anomie. And he felt that that threatened the equilibrium of the society. So why was he so threatened by it? Because as a functionalist, all functionalists wanted equilibrium in society. So once that is threatened, that is destroyed, it gets very disturbing for them. So they kept on looking how to establish social order. Some of his major works, major writings were, as you can see, 1893, he worked on the division of labor in society. 1895, he worked on the rules of sociological method. 1897, he worked on suicide. And 1912, he worked on the elementary forms of religious life. What is the objective of this lecture today, of this presentation today? The key issues that will be covered, firstly, Durkheim's idea of various theories, as I already named them, and to focus on how Durkheim analyzes the concept of social facts, the theories of religion, the suicide, the division of labor, and its points of criticism as a whole. So these will be the key issues that will be covered. Now, what do I expect as an outcome? The expected outcomes will be students will get an understanding about the core of Durkheim's major theories. Learners will be able to analyze the theories. Students will get an idea about the limitations of his theories as well. So, let us get on to the main aspect of Durkheim's concept. Firstly, Durkheim talked about social facts. He felt that social facts were an independent kind of force. It existed by itself. It did not depend on anything or anyone. So, Durkheim said it was sui generis. He mentioned that social facts, what are these social facts? These are not within us. These are not within the individual. They are external to the individual, outside the individual. And they are coercive in nature. And by being coercive, they become a constraint on the individuals. Individuals are bound to follow these social facts that Durkheim mentions. For Durkheim, everything in all his theories are social facts. As we have seen, here you can take another look at the major theories that Durkheim worked on. Let us come to what Durkheim thought about. As I was saying, I was talking about sacred and profane. Now, all societies, according to Durkheim, are divided into two basic categories, the sacred and the profane. So what is the profane? The profane, it's the mundane, ordinary life objects that we use in our daily life. So for example, the handkerchief is a profane object. The pen is a profane object. Now, in contrast, what are the sacred objects then? The sacred refers to anything which transcends the mundane, regular uses of everyday life. We do not use the sacred objects regularly in life. For example, in Hindu religion, there's this, say, Shivalinga. Now, we don't use the Shivalinga every day for our daily life usage. This is kept as sacred. This is kept as holy and removed from the everyday mundane. Now, Durkheim mentions that religion is the collective practice of differentiating and maintaining the space between the sacred and the profane, typically done through rituals. So, what Durkheim wants to argue over here is that religion is not an individual practice. So from today onwards, I start saying that I use my pen as my God and that is a religion. It doesn't happen that way. It has to be believed and practiced by a number of people, by a collective, to become a religion. Also, through the rituals that we practice in religion. For example, say a rangoli, which we put during a religious ceremony, is a ritual. How then does it separate the sacred and the profane? So, for example, it's your drawing room, it's your living room, which is a profane area otherwise. For your everyday use, you go there, you sit there, you watch TV there, you eat there, you walk there. Now, on the day of a religious program, you put rangoli in that space as a part of the religious ritual. Here, now it becomes a sacred space which you consider holy, unlike the other days. Then you mention to the others not to step on the rangoli, not to have food there, and other sorts of rituals. So what do rituals do? Rituals maintain this difference, this space between the sacred and the profane. Very important thing that we need to understand about Durkheim's concept of religion is, for Durkheim, sacred and profane are both relative concepts, subjective concepts. Let me give you an example. So for me, I might consider a stone which I have brought from somewhere as a holy object, as a sacred object, and worship it. However, others of other religion may not consider it sacred. They might not feel that, or maybe the stone that I brought is part of the religion. So it is a very subjective concept. It depends on individual beliefs, individual understanding. In context to this, it is believed that to understand the role of religion in society, the relationship between the sacred symbols and what they represent must be learned. How do I know that when I draw a rangoli on the floor on the day of the puja, that is sacred, and when I draw the same rangoli on my art book, it's not? So you have to learn what the meanings of these symbols are by constantly practicing them, routinizing them. Here comes the very important concept of taboo. Now, totemism was one of the earliest and simplest form of religious practice. There were clan-based societies, the Australian Aborigines and the Northwest Native American Indians. As I mentioned, each clan had a totem. What does a totem mean? I repeat, a totem is a symbol. Usually, it is an animal or plant. It is often represented by drawings or carving wood or stone, and it served to distinguish one clan from the other clan. So each clan has their own totem. Now, by worshipping the totem, the clan members, Durkheim argues that they are actually worshipping what? They are actually worshipping their clan, their society. So society is more important than the individual over here, which brings us back to the essential argument of functionalist theory, as individuals are dependent on the society. The clan, it becomes too complex a thing for people to understand. Religious symbols, thus, are simpler to worship. So if I have a symbol, then it gets easier for me to visualize, to think about the entirety of the society through that. What is a taboo? A taboo is the banning of certain rituals, banning of certain relationships, banning of certain other activities. Obviously, it is extremely related to the sacred objects, to the sacred space. Why? Because if it is sacred, there will be rituals, and if it is sacred, there will be taboos where you are forbidden to do things that you otherwise do on everyday basis that are mundane. Okay? Next, Durkheim talks about the collective consciousness. For Durkheim, as I mentioned, everything is a social fact. So, religion, of course, is also a social fact. And religion cannot happen. We cannot call it a religion if it is individual, if it is done by one person. It has to be collective. Now, what kind of social fact is religion? Religion is a non-material social fact. We cannot go and touch religion and say, this is religion, I'm touching religion. It's abstract. What is it made up of? It is made up of people's norms, beliefs, values, all of these. Now, these people's norms, beliefs, and values, they make up collective consciousness. People share a way of understanding and behaving in the world. What happens due to this sharing of or this collective consciousness? People are bound together, and this creates social integration. So, the same beliefs, the same norms, same values of certain religion brings collective consciousness, not individual consciousness, and creates social integration which binds us together. This theory of collective consciousness obviously explains why certain values, traditions, and beliefs are constant across a society. They do not vary in that particular society. In primitive societies, there is a reliance on religion, ritual, and shared beliefs to hold the community together. Durkheim talks of mechanical solidarity when he works on his division of labor. For Durkheim, it was the collective consciousness plus common moral bond between people which provided the initial foundation for social solidarity. It brought about social solidarity. As we were just starting to talk about division of labor, the division of labor in society, 1893, was Durkheim's first major published work. He introduced the concept of anomie, which I said was normlessness. Anomie basically is the breakdown of the influence of social norms on individuals within a society. Difference between developing and advanced civilizations. Durkheim perceived how they perceive the social solidarity. Another focus of Durkheim was how each type of society defined the role of law in resolving the breaks in that social solidarity. Durkheim talked of two kinds of social solidarity in totality. Firstly, he talked of mechanical solidarity, and the other he talked of organic solidarity. Now, in earlier times, people of the same group, of the same collective, they used to do similar kind of mechanical, machine-like work. So everyone used to do everything, just like a machine does. This solidarity, this collective consciousness bound the individual to the society in primitive times was known as mechanical solidarity by Durkheim. During a little bit more modern times, society becomes more complex. Society has a scheme of diverse roles, and these are integrated by definite relationships. Each individual now has a specialized, distinct job of their own. They no more keep on doing repetitive mechanical work. What do they do now? Now they become specialized in their own sectors. And together, these specializations form one total product. Here, because it behaves like the parts of an organism, similarly, here the solidarity is organic. It's almost like the parts of the society, just like an organism, they are providing their functions for the functioning of the total whole. This solidarity, this binding, integration, Durkheim labels as organic solidarity. Now, as we talked about the two kinds of solidarity, the mechanical solidarity in the pre-modern times and organic solidarity in the modern times, we found that the more primitive a society, the more it is characterized by mechanical solidarity and the solidarity of sameness. People did the similar kind of work. For example, in agrarian society, all of them sowed seeds, picked them up, watered them. So they did the same things. All of them did the same set of things. While in industrial society, the population divided their work into specialized sectors, which was no more a mechanical solidarity, but organic solidarity. This was not a solidarity of sameness. This was a solidarity of interdependence. For Durkheim, the laws of a society are the most visible symbol of social solidarity and the organization of social life in its most precise and stable form. Law plays a part in a society that is equivalent to the nervous system in organisms. The nervous system controls the numerous bodily functions that we do. So they work together in synchronized way. Similarly, the legal system controls all parts of the society so that they work together in a synchronized way successfully. Durkheim mentions two types of law corresponding to the types of social solidarity. The first are the moral laws, the repressive laws, and the second are the restitutive laws or organic laws. Here, it would be important to mention how Herbert Spencer, talked about industrial solidarity being spontaneous, and there is no need for a coercive body to produce or maintain it. Plus, social harmony is established by itself. This is what Herbert Spencer feels. However, Durkheim strongly opposes this, strongly disagreed. He always felt that there was this external, coercive, independent entity of the social fact which always coerced and maintained the social harmony. It was not spontaneous according to Durkheim. And talking about social order, social solidarity not being spontaneous, we come to the term of anomie. Emile Durkheim, in his study of suicide, he introduced this term. In fact, one of his types of suicide, the anomic suicide, stemmed from the collapse of the social standards essential for regulating actions. So, what is anomie? It is a condition of uncertainty resulting from a breakdown of standards and values or from a lack of purpose or ideals. Let us see how things operate in case of Durkheim's theory of suicide. What do we mean by suicide? Suicide is death because of a change in the victim's behavior which he knows the results of. So if he is killing himself, he knows that I would die. According to Durkheim, social integration is also one of the reasons for suicide. That definitely sounds interesting. How can social integration become one of the reasons for suicide? I will tell you how. Durkheim's work on suicide analyzed how suicide rates at the time differed across religions, specifically Protestants and Catholics. Durkheim found a lower rate of suicide among the Catholics and theorized that the reason for this might be that Catholics had a stronger social control among them than the Protestants. In 1897, Durkheim did his work on suicide, a study in sociology. Now, Durkheim talked about four major types of suicide based on two major factors. One of the factors being social control and the other being social integration. Now, Durkheim says that when there is very low social integration, I am not integrated, I do not feel like belonging to the society, then there is very low social integration. Then there might be depression, isolation, and eventually suicide. This suicide he terms as egoistic suicide. This may result from either superiority complex or inferiority complex. Where there is very high social integration, I'm extremely bonded, extremely integrated to the society, there also suicide may occur. I may be so uh, connected, integrated to the society that I put the society, place the society before my being, before myself. So, for example, when the suicide bombers, they think about the society first rather than thinking about their death. And this kind of high social integration leading to a suicide, these type he calls altruistic suicide. So these were the two types of suicide based on social integration. One where social integration is high, the other where social integration is low. Thirdly, Durkheim talks about where there is very high social control. For example, if there is a society where there is too much of social control, where you cannot do this, cannot do that, and you cannot go out, you cannot show your face and all that, then people might feel suffocated and commit suicide. This Durkheim terms as fatalistic suicide. Here there is high social control. Finally, Durkheim talks of anomic suicide, which is a suicide which happens in a society with extremely low social control. There is almost no normlessness. There is utter chaos. Say after a war, there is unemployment, there is death, and there is complete chaos all over. This turmoil can lead to suicides. This suicide Durkheim terms as anomic suicide. So these were the four types of suicide that Durkheim talked about. Now we saw how Durkheim theorized the different theories of suicide, religion, division of labor, and so on. So let us just sum up a bit and see what we studied today. Durkheim developed the theories of social structure that included solidarity, collective consciousness, and, of course, anomy. These theories were based on the ideas of social facts. All of them were based on the ideas of social facts or societal norms, values, and structures. Like the functionalists, he obviously concentrated on the problem of order and positive effects of social institutions in terms of their functionally necessary contribution. Repeatedly, we have seen how Durkheim harped on the fact that society shapes the individual. Durkheim opines that society has a reality independent of the members of the society. It does not depend who is the member, who are constrained by social facts, by ways of acting, thinking, and feeling, which are external to the individual and coercive. So he talks about the characteristics of social facts. Social facts, he opines, include beliefs, moral codes, and basic norms and values. What happens to them? They are passed from one generation to the next, and they are shared by the members of the society. The common beliefs and sentiments of the individuals, they shape his or her consciousness, which means society shapes the individual. Very specifically, when Durkheim talks about his religion, he actually mentions how through worshipping of the totem, the people, the population is actually worshipping the society. So he equates how worshipping of religion is equal to the worship of society. What does Durkheim repeatedly highlight about social solidarity, socialization, and anomie? He said that, of course, freedom was required for an individual. However, extreme freedom was bad for the individual because then they would suffer from a sense of uncertainty and confusion about their own position, their role in the society. This is the condition Durkheim called anomie. Durkheim argued that societies needed to create a sense of social solidarity, which would ensure that individuals feel as if they belong to, as if they are a part of the larger whole, abiding by the standards of acceptable behavior of that particular society at that particular time frame. Earlier, solidarity was maintained by the family and then religion. But religion was kind of fading in the 20th century Europe. So modern societies faced this crisis of anomie. He hypothesized that new institutions like schools, workplaces, and voluntary organizations would eventually provide the social glue which would make people feel the solidarity with the larger whole. He was convinced that governments in Europe needed to create national education system in order to socialize the young and create a sense of their solidarity, sense of their integrity and belonging. For most functionalists like Durkheim, socialization, the teaching of shared norms and values through these institutions, which helped the strengthening of social solidarity, was extremely, extremely important. These theories of Emile Durkheim are extremely important even today. However, his theories were not beyond criticism. Some anthropologists argue that when Durkheim says religion is the worship of society, he has actually overstated the view. Durkheim's views are comparatively less relevant, according to some theorists, to modern social situations with numerous subcultures. Some sociologists argue that Durkheim took an extremist stand by limiting sociology to the study of social facts. He was kind of explaining everything with the study of social facts. The keywords that we constantly repeated during our lecture today were social facts, sacred, profane, taboo, totem, social solidarity, mechanical solidarity, organic solidarity, collective consciousness, and so on. Let me just voice certain probable questions for you. Firstly, give a narrative of the major arguments Durkheim put forth in his theory of division of labor. How did Durkheim differentiate between the sacred and the profane? Discuss the concept of taboo in relation to these concepts. In case you want further learning and understanding, you want about Durkheim and his life, and deeper understanding about the topic, here are your resources and references that you can look up. Thank you, students.